You went viral yesterday, though, on the Dan Patrick Show, saying that you would stick with Justin Fields over Caleb Williams and Drake Maye. And, of course, because I just live for clout, I was like, hey, give us those takes and have us go viral. But
I said that.
No, I know you did.
Guys.
We just don't have the same reach of Dan Patrick. But, Mike, I thought that you had not done the full deep dive on Drake Maye or Caleb Williams yet in terms of the All-22 and the full film review? Or do you feel like you've watched enough of them now to say that Fields is better than them?
Yeah, look, I mean, you guys were my number one. Like, let's be real. I've been saying this for 10 weeks, 11 weeks, so yeah, that was a cool, I was not expecting to go that viral over those comments because I'm like, dude, I say it all the time. And the reason I said that was I have watched a little bit more Caleb Williams and Drake Maye, and both are going to have, you hope, outstanding careers. But then, what I go to and go back to is like Justin Fields, in my opinion, is like one of the 20 to 22 quarterbacks in the world that is competent at his job. You know what you're getting. Like if you put Justin Fields in a better offense with a better scheme and you surround him with better players, he's going to play better naturally. I don't know if the Chicago Bears are quite there yet, but with Caleb Williams and Drake Maye, I just am not sure you know what you're getting because they could go in and you're going to have a total rebuild around them and you hope they work out. Like quarterback evaluation is such a crapshoot. You don't know what you're getting. You think you know what you're getting. I go back to Brock Purdy. Dude was mystery relevant. There was 260 some odd picks or whatever it was that passed him up that said you weren't good enough. And now, in my opinion, he's playing like a top 5 quarterback in the league. And they surround him with a lot of people, so forth and so on. I get that. But right now, I think Justin Fields is trending up. I've said it all year. I didn't love the game plan. I didn't love everything that went along with that game, but he still found a way to win.
So, yeah, it's interesting. And obviously, you know what it takes to be competent and be one of those 20 to 22 or however many quarterbacks are competent. And what you're weighing is the possibility of him getting elite versus the chance of the unknown rookies becoming eventually elite. And also there's the money in there and resetting the clock and everything like that. Like, do you still believe that Justin Fields could be as good as Jalen Hurts or as good as Josh Allen or Justin Herbert? Like, we want to aim for the top in this town.
Yeah. You do want to aim for the top in this town. Quite honestly, this town has not had great quarterbacking. I mean, 4,000-yard passers. I mean, that's just all this stuff. It wears on Bears fans. And I don't envy you guys because if I was a fan, I would be pissed off too and want the best of the best. And yeah, I do think with the right people around him, Justin can be elite. I don't know if he's ever going to be a top 5 quarterback in the league. And quite honestly, I don't know if you need that. And quite honestly, you need to build an offense around Justin where he can be successful. And everyone, and I said that on Twitter and I said this, and everyone's like, well, no kidding. Everyone can. But like, that's the thing. You need good people around you. That's what people don't understand. Like, I don't know if Justin will ever be the guy to just put the team on his back throwing the football. And quite honestly, he doesn't need to be that way. Like, I think eventually with people around him, you surround him with the offensive line, the skill weapons that the Eagles have done with Jalen Hurts, I think he can be really successful. Now, elite, I can't say that right now. Who knows? Because quite honestly, there is enough tape out there, but there's not enough tape with a good offense and a good skill group around him. So that question is still yet to be sort of heard.
So let's get to the specifics of the game. 46% of the passes were at or behind the line.
Waiting for that stat.
The line of scrimmage. I mean, it was horrible to watch just from an entertainment product standpoint. Why did they do that?
Well, I heard Kurt Warner's interview, and he does a fantastic job with you guys, and he sort of hit it right on. I have my own take on it, and my take is that it's because Brian Flores blitzes 60% of the time. And quite honestly, I don't even know, and I have a lot of stats available to me from NFL Network, and I don't even know if there's a team at 38%. So you get 60% pressure, and then it falls all the way off to 38%, which 38% is a ton. So you can imagine 60% of the time they're pressuring, and a lot of that pressure is cover zero. So you have to have built-in answers. And people talk about the throws beyond the line of scrimmage. It wasn't, if you really break it down, it wasn't just like, hey, let me just throw a quick screen. Okay. It was a run game RPO type things where they were throwing a bubble versus certain looks. I thought a few of those reads were wrong for Justin. I thought he could have handed the ball off on 2 or 3 of those. Okay. So those are that. Then I think he had a couple to where he checked to these screens or quick throws when it was cover zero. Okay, so that cover zero look, I like those things. The ball has to come out. All right. And I also thought that they did a good job, especially like that 4th and 10 one. They did a really good job, and they had a plan with when Cole Kmet blocked. Okay, the corner over him freed up to go to the 3 receiver side. They did that a couple times. And quite honestly, they could have had 2 or 3 more like bigger plays on that if they came back to it. But they had stuff like that. So I didn't love all of the quick screens, bubbles, RPO, but it wasn't like it was just like Justin throwing a quick screen and that was the entirety of the offense, if that makes sense. There are other ways to beat this type of pressure. A lot of them have to do with audibles at the line, checking into Max Pro, sometimes a screen, sometimes quick game. And it looked to me that Luke Getsy almost didn't copy the game plan of the Chargers, but the Chargers, if you watched them early in the year, they quick gamed them to death. They just gained more yards after it. I almost think that the Chargers threw more at or behind the line of scrimmage versus the Minnesota Vikings, but got more yards. So if these quick screens and throws are working instead of getting up and tackling, then we won't be having this conversation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And the Chargers did that to the Bears, by the way, on Sunday night. They quick gamed them to death. So it can work. You said some interesting things in there, and it hits to something I'm trying to find out this week. And Luke Getsy won't speak until Thursday. How much control does Justin have to audible into or out of those wide receiver screens? At one point, they ran 3 in a row. Another point there was like 3 out of 4, something like that, and it felt insane. Does he have the power to do it? Does that grow with his experience? And we're wondering, how much you can hold him accountable for how many times they did it.
Yeah, I would hold Justin accountable to maybe 5%. That's the thing that I'm so glad you brought that up, because a lot of people are like, well, why didn't Justin check out that? Well, I don't know if he has the option to. It sure doesn't look like it based on what just I'm seeing watching the All 22. You'd like for him to have more options, but in my opinion, Justin is not at fault here. Justin is running the game plan. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if the game plan is what it is going into the week, you got to fully buy in if you're the quarterback. And if your hands are tied, you got to do what you got to do. Now, I will say, I told you this, and I said this before, on some of these quick screens, they were RPO advantage throws, and he took 2 or 3 that I thought just hand the ball off and live with it, and maybe you can gash them. So on those, absolutely, he has the option. But on the actual passes or audibles against this cover zero, because let's just be real, like this is not, from what I've watched, this has not been their offensive game plan. Like, this offensive game plan is strategically placed to beat the Minnesota Vikings because of the fact that the Minnesota Vikings are blitzing so much. So I don't think you can take one game and make this crazy take and be like, oh, well, why? Yeah, of course it's not fun to watch. They ended up winning the game. And quite honestly, without the 2 fumbles and a missed field goal, it would have been even worse. I thought they played pretty well. The game plan left a lot to be desired in that aspect, but it is always a tricky spot for an offensive coordinator when you're facing a team like this, because they are different than all other 31 other NFL teams.
It's great stuff about the Viking-specific matchup with Chase Daniel. One more thing on the audibles. A year 3 quarterback in year 2 with the system, would you expect him to be empowered more than he appears to be or not?
It just depends. It depends on the offensive scheme and the offensive play caller. And that's the biggest thing for me. That whole thing when Justin sort of threw the coaching under the bus, I think it was Justin's whole way of just saying, like, I don't want to deal with that. I just want to play. Like, stop giving me so much stuff. I'll make it right with my legs if it's not there. And you can see that maybe the audibles at the line of scrimmage have gone down. And quite honestly, that could have been Justin be like, stop putting so much on my plate. That's fine. Like, you look at Jalen Hurts, he has the ability on some certain plays to audible, but it's not like Drew Brees going out there and miking every run game, miking every pass game control. No, like there's a lot to be said of just playing free. And believe me, Justin's not the only quarterback in the NFL that says, hey, I just don't want that. I just want to play ball. You call it and I'll do it.
We're talking to Chase Daniel. The tweet that you put out with your video, in the last 17 games, 4,200 total yards, 33 total touchdowns, 93 quarterback rating. Justin Fields is still not the problem. It did not have the 7 fumbles lost this year, 35 fumbles in 33 games started in his career. Led the league in fumbles last year. Led the league in sacks taken last year. Has taken 29 sacks this year. And I'm curious, in the fourth quarter of this game, he fumbled twice, and on the play before the great conversion to DJ Moore down the field, 2 near sacks in terms of holding the ball forever, one pass that easily could have been, Kevin O'Connell thought it should have been, an intentional grounding call. And if it's called that way, he probably never gets the conversion to DJ Moore. I'm curious what you thought about the ugly of the fourth quarter before the great play to DJ Moore.
Yeah, I mean, it was ugly. And quite honestly, it's 2 inexcusable fumbles. I mean, the dude has to learn to hold on to the football, and that's just bottom line. I do think, and the reason I didn't put the fumbles, I mean, I saw it, and everyone knows it. And the sacks are a different animal because I don't necessarily think sacks. I mean, I think he's gotten away from what he did last year and holding on to the ball.
The last couple of games have been better for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
And so I think that's on the up and up. Those things, sacks and fumbles, those are correctable, man. You can fix those things. You can work on protecting the football, and it just has to be a conscious decision. And what I don't think you can control sometimes is bad decision making, which he's doing a good job. Like, he's doing a much better job on where to go with the ball. Those fumbles aren't decision makings. Now, they are cruxes to the team, and they do hurt the team. And quite honestly, he could have lost the game because he had back-to-back fumbles in the fourth quarter. And I love the fact that he stayed with it. He was resilient, and he marched the team down the field. An amazing play call, amazing throw to DJ Moore to get the conversion. And then I saw today, actually, like right before this, I saw the video on Twitter that I think the Bears social media put out of Flus talking to the team. And then at the very end, it's Justin like taking accountability in front of the team. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I love that. Mm-hmm. I love seeing that. And that it is not normal for players to do that when a head coach is speaking and just be like, hey man, like, thanks for having my back. I appreciate, like, that accountability factor is incredible, because I've been in a lot of locker rooms where guys have quite honestly lost us games and have never done that. Like, I'm not saying that's the end all be all, but that's cool to see, man. Like, that's growth to me. So he's a really likable dude. That doesn't matter the job. You got to control the fumbles. The fumbles, in my opinion, they're coachable. They're coachable. Just hold on to the freaking football.
They're not a product though of the style of play. Because you're like, I don't know that he'll ever be great where he can beat you just with his arm. You can't run. You can't run forever. The athleticism will eventually wane. So I would think that you would be more prone to fumbling if you're going to have to run more, because you're going to have the ball in your hand a higher percentage of the time.
Yeah, and quite honestly, I haven't broken down all the fumbles, but I'd be interested to see how many of those come in the pocket.
Yeah.
Right. Versus how many of those come running down the field. And I'd imagine it's probably split. And that's the thing. Like, I have seen like Justin's pocket presence get a lot better. And that just comes with experience. And that just comes with, hey, the confidence in my offensive line, right? If I have an offensive line that I can trust a little bit more, maybe. But at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not making excuses. You got to hold on to the ball. Like, that's the fastest way to lose games in the National Football League, is turning the ball over. But, thankful for Justin, that defense has been getting a lot of takeaways lately.
Chase, he is likable. That moment in the locker room is great.
Everyone loved it.
And the toughness to, after the 2 fumbles, to come out and make the play. He ran the ball once in that final series and held the ball with 2 arms like a fullback, trying to make sure. All of that. The problem is, if they fire the coaching staff and Luke Getsy's gone, as he's getting more expensive here for Justin Fields in year 4, and you may or may not pick up the option, you're going to be probably asking him to learn a new system from a new offensive coordinator. You've had to do that many times. Yeah. Would you take the risk of doing that into year 4, giving him a new system, and choosing not to go for those undrafted or those draft pick wild cards we talked about at the beginning?
I think he's smart enough to learn a new system. And I think the system, so here's the deal. It's sort of twofold. If the Bears and Ryan Poles and ownership decides Justin Fields is our guy, they are going to do everything in their power to surround him with people and an offensive scheme that fits just him. They'd be crazy not to if they make that decision, right? So they're going to build a scheme around Justin that Justin understands, that Justin likes doing, that maybe he had some experience with in his Ohio State days. Like, all of that matters if Justin Fields is the guy, and if you end up going a different direction than Luke Getsy and hiring a new offensive coordinator. So that plays into it. And I still think at the end of the day, Justin, at least for another year or 2, is the guy. Like, I do. And just because I'm seeing on film, on tape, like tape, like film don't lie to me. And look, it's a hot topic. It's a hot debate. If you polled Chicago, 50% would say get rid of them. 50% would say let's stay with them. And so, you know what? At the end of the day, that's why these guys are making the big bucks, man. That's the decision they have to make.
It's funny. So I did poll Chicago, had over 8,000 votes in a Twitter poll, and it was after the game, 60-40, because it was who do you want to be the week 1 starter next year? Fields, Caleb, or Drake Maye? And about 61% was Fields, and then the 39% was split.
So it's more.
Yeah, it was split between Caleb and Drake Maye, and that was right as the Monday night game ended. What I have found interesting in this conversation, though, Chase, is you're like, build the team around him. He can be good, but it comes with the legs. We're talking about daring to be great. Yes, you can always build the team and then go on for another quarterback. If they didn't have the Carolina pick, this would be so easy. Or if the Carolina pick was the 7th pick in the draft.
Yeah, it's 4 right now.
The Bears is 4. The Carolina pick is 1. The Carolina pick is 1.
Yeah.
If they had the 4th and the 7th pick, this would be so easy. It'd be so easy. You'd be excited about Justin Fields, the person and the leader and the growth and the progress. Take a little deal with the coaching, draft a couple of dudes, and see what happens. But with the opportunity at 1-1, if you stick with Fields and add around him, they're going to be better next year. Of course they're going to be better. And he is good, and he would be a starter in the NFL. But is he good enough? And then you've gotten too good where you can't draft the top quarterback. And then, how do you ever get great if you settle for good at quarterback? Yeah, I think that's the issue.
That's a great point. And I mean, that's another thing that a lot of people aren't saying. Like, if they end up picking 1 and Carolina keeps losing or whatever. Yeah. Like, the fact that they could move back from 1 to even 3 if they're thinking about Marvin Harrison or an offensive tackle, like the amount of draft capital you can get from that. Mm-hmm. And who says you have to pick a quarterback in the first round, dude? How many quarterbacks have failed that have been first round picks? It's such a crapshoot. You can find quarterbacks later on in the draft. So it's just sort of the revolving door around Chicago and quarterbacks. Like, I don't think you need to draft a dude in the first round that's going to ensure your success for future, if that makes sense.